Collective Creative Initiative Drinking Brainy Harris Kelly is on, providing equal opportunity despite economic circumstance. The time is 1:30, and yes, you can hear a car going and the streamers going. Perfect timing to introduce our next guest for the next hour. Rosalie Craig is here to keep our spirits up and take us through this warm, hot day. Goodness, the weather is absolutely glorious, sweating, but let's get through this. For those tuning in, please do remember to subscribe. And if you want to ask Rosalie any questions throughout the session, please drop them in the live feed below. Subscribers, you can now get 12 months free access to Backstage, an actor's most trusted source for career advice and casting opportunity. So please subscribe now for access. We have an hour. Let's waste no time. Rosalie is backstage. So let's say hello and welcome her to the Collective Creative Initiative. Hello.
Hi.
How are we doing?
We're warm, aren't we?
Very, very warm. It is absolutely typical. Just the strimmer and the engines just going all in one. But just very, very quickly before we delve into the who's and the whys of Rosalie Craig, just for those tuning in, obviously it's been a difficult one for a lot of people, but for you, if you were starting out with your career in the now, in the present, what would you be doing to carve out a pathway for you to give yourself a stepping stone, to give yourself a chance, to give yourself a voice in this industry?
Do you mean in a pandemic?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I wish I had an answer for that, Bailey, but it's just, I think it's a really big one, isn't it? Because even as somebody who's been in the industry for 20 odd years, it feels like a fresh start, really, actually, in terms of, I think we're all starting at the very beginning. So what would I do to carve out a path for myself?
Yeah.
Keep myself sane, keep myself busy, keep myself healthy and fit, and try and be inspired. There's lots of wonderful content on Netflix and things like that to be inspired by. Lots of new voices. I would normally say go to the theatre, go to art galleries, go and do this, but obviously you can't do that right now. Exactly. So yeah, it's about self-preservation, really, and whatever that means for you. My preservation might be very different to somebody else's.
Yeah. Just very, very quickly, talking about theatre inspirations, just going back, what really inspired you to join this industry that's full of so much content?
Yeah, it is full of so much content, isn't it? I don't think there was as much content when I was
now.
Sure. What inspired me was the theatre, the local theatre. I used to go to Nottingham Playhouse as a girl, where I grew up, and joined the local government-led groups and a local choir my mum and dad got me involved with. So I feel it was very, I was inspired mainly by things that were surrounding me and what I had access to. We didn't come to London and go to big theatres. And I think the first time I came to London, I couldn't quite get over the fact that, the size of the theatre, or the size of things that you could watch, or the busy city and things like that. I found it really, really daunting. I just can't believe I've lived here for so long now. But yeah, that's the thing. I think I took inspiration from my local produce,
Oh, first quick question straight away. Beat me to it. So here we go. How do you reconcile earning a living and pursuing projects you are passionate about?
How do I reconcile earning a living? Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether the two go hand in hand. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I think genuinely, if you're involved in the arts, you're sort of saying to yourself, this is not a money-making scheme. So I have spent most of my life doing 2 or 3 jobs as well as this job, because we all know it does not pay very, very well unless you are in a certain bracket of it or have been, have got extremely lucky. So I think you must pursue your dreams, because I'm a great believer in that's what we're doing here. I don't think that money and dreams are necessarily side by side. It's how much you value pursuing your dreams. And if the value, if you can be rich just off that, in terms of not in money terms, but you can be rich as a person off doing that.
Yeah, and with the rewards that come with that, obviously you've worked with some amazing creators, collaborators, Rufus Norris, Marianne Elliott. For those actually listening, the upcoming industry talent that is coming our way, what makes a great collaborator? Why do you love bouncing off these particular individuals? What makes the perfect collaborator for you?
Genuinely somebody who does collaborate, and somebody who listens, and somebody who doesn't put themselves above or below you. You have to, I feel the best working environments, be it on film sets, TV sets, in the theatre, in a studio, are when all your egos are out the room. So when you just literally are working towards making something the best it can possibly be. And of course, we all are burdened by narcissistic tendencies and our ego, so we will fight with those. I mean, they will come in. But I think to be open and to listen, and sometimes we don't have the answers. That's one of the things that I love about Rufus. Is when I first started working with him, he would always go, well, you know, what do you think? What do you know? And he goes, what do you think about this? And he'd say, well, I don't know. How am I supposed to know? We're just making this, which was so brilliant, because I just thought, you know, oftentimes as actors, we try and please the director or the creatives, and it's not really about that, is it? It's about us all finding the thing together. And I think the more we try to please, or more go, is that okay? Do you love me? Do you love me? Is that brilliant? Also, we're not going to be perfect. Marianne Elliott always says, this is a safe room, and you can fail in here. This is where we do all of our bad, wrong work, you know. And it's true, because if you walked into that rehearsal room perfect, then why on earth would you that piece is already made, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And talking about safe room, we've got another question that's just come in, and everyone, please, we've only got an hour and we're nearly 10 minutes in, so make the most of this Q&A. So this from Marisa. Hi guys, how do you find balancing work in the arts and motherhood? Have you found that it's a more forgiving, understanding industry than, say, the standard corporate world? Thanks.
Oh, no, I haven't found that. I think it's a real challenge for anybody who's working and who's a parent. It's also quite challenging to find your new identity as a parent in the industry, because pre our daughter, I would always be the person who was the first in the rehearsal room and the last out, and constantly, working all hours, or happy to socialize, things like that. But I think that side of things quickly falls away. I think you have to work very, very hard to be heard as a parent in this industry. And also, it's sort of up to you to make it really important. That I'm certainly somebody now who says, I'm so sorry, but I can't do that because of my daughter. And some people love it and go for it, and some people really don't. But there has to be a balance, of course, because we do have to go to work, and that also is incredibly important for me to be a role model to my daughter, and for her father to also be a role model. But I think we've got a long way to go in the industry. It's a continuing conversation, I think, because we work in an industry where people cancel weddings, people don't go to funerals, people miss the birth of their children because they've got to be in a room, or maybe somebody says to them, if you can't make this time because you've got X, Y, and Z on, you don't want it enough. And I'm a real believer in that. We've got to work harder at being more nurturing towards one another.
And going back to that sense of openness again, and whilst we're on that, in the very same vein, like the stage and screen, you're big significant figure on both of those mediums, and so how are you able to keep yourself in the public and the industry's eye constantly? Because we have been seeing you on the stage and on the screen, and you have been having that momentum. So how have you been able to build that momentum and keep it as a continuum, as it were?
Oh, just by sheer throwing myself at it. It's like basically throwing a load of stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. I think that I'm a bit of a workhorse, you see, and I don't like sitting still for too long. So I think it's fair to say that if I've maybe got like a free few hours pre-lockdown, when the world was, when there was projects happening, I would be somebody who would be proactive and be trying to motivate projects or contacting people, coming up with ideas of things to do. I'm not great at sitting around and waiting for the phone to ring, because it makes me just feel bad about myself, basically. And it makes me feel a bit like, I'm just waiting for someone else to employ me. So I would get together with some friends, or think of an idea and contact a director or that I might know or might not know, or just try and get involved. I love doing workshops, readings, there's nothing, there's rarely anything that I wouldn't want to be involved with. I like doing concerts, or I'm happy, I'm not proud, I'm happy to do a day's filming, or I love filming, I want to do more of it, so if there was an opportunity to just do an afternoon's filming on something, I'm there. It's just, I think it's about being ready to go, and also not taking yourself too seriously, like saying, well, I think that's a bit beneath me. It's just, why would it be? Just be open to doing the things that are right for you, that come your way.
Exactly. So you just look at opportunity, and there's not a pinpoint that motivates about the material. It's just jumping on that and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I really think so. And sometimes, I'll get a workshop or a reading through, and I think, oh, blimey, I really haven't, can I, in the good old days, could I fit this in? And, I absolutely want to always make everything work. I think that's, my agents get really like, oh, because I'm like, can we just fit this? Can we, because I'm passionate about this as an industry. And also, who's to say that somebody's piece that they've just written, in their bedroom isn't going to be like the next most amazing thing? And even if it isn't, it's an endeavor, isn't it? So it should be taken seriously.
How do you breathe with all of that? Sorry, I'm seeing all the questions coming through, but just quickly,
I can't see any of them, so that's good.
How do you breathe with all of that? Just centering your core and able to just be efficient with everything that you're doing, so you don't burn out.
Yoga. Genuinely. Like I do a lot of it, and also you have to have your time. Of course, you have to have your breaks, and you have to have your time. And you do burn out, and especially if you're doing like a long run of a show, and you're trying to get a job in the day, and you might be doing, saying yes to everything. And you can't. The thing is, you can't do everything. Of course not. But I think that, yeah, the will is there. The will is there. It's loud to do it all, but I do have to. I find it very, very difficult to sit down. For example, sitting down for a whole hour for me is a real challenge.
I'm just seeing here, sorry, because they're all piling up now, the questions. Got to try and get through them. This one is quickly from Rachel. So it says, hi, Bailey and Rosie, is there something you wish you knew before starting your career?
Great question. Yes, always. This is the one thing that I always wish I could go back to my former younger self and say, is that be yourself, because I spent 90% of the beginning of my career trying to be somebody else. I don't know who that someone was, but I basically thought that I was very much like the successful people are over there, and they've all got a special key and special knowledge of the industry, and I don't know what it is yet. So I'd sort of sometimes watch somebody through an audition, like, through the little hole window, and think, right, I'll just do what they did. I didn't know whether they were doing a good job or not. I just thought, well, they're more experienced than me, so I should do it like that, and like second guessing what people wanted. And essentially, the best thing I've learned over how many years it's been, probably 20 odd years, is that there's nobody else like you. So there's no point trying to be somebody else, because you are the only version of you. So there's no point trying to pretend, or you've got to be authentic. You've got to be your authentic self, because then people will hire you for what you are and what you can bring to the table. If you just copy what everyone else is, then how can that grow? How can that evolve? How can you move through an industry which you mature through? You have to play, you go from an ingenue to playing a mother, to, whatever, you play a girlfriend. It's just, you can only approach things from you. So I wish somebody had grabbed me when I was 20, 21 and just said, stop trying to be everybody else, be yourself.
And looking at yourself, just following up with the next question here from Mika. Thank you, Mika. Is there a difference between how you approach a role for a workshop, a show, a concert, given the cast and creatives?
Well, I think for a workshop, sometimes I won't have a lot of information about a character, and we might be building a character in the room, or it might just be ideas that we're coming up with, or the writer or the director that I'm trying to interpret or add to, or not get in the way of, and just be a facilitator rather than somebody who's going, what about this? What about that? Because sometimes that's really unhelpful. I think you mentioned Althea then. I think it was in terms of preparing for the concert of that, it was just because I'd played her so much, I knew her very, very well, and I'd had the great fortune of co-creating that role for about 5 years before we did the production. So it didn't feel like I had to start at the beginning with that. But I'm a hard worker, is what I'd say. I think preparation is key. And I think, you know, if you're going to go out onto a stage, or you're going to go into a rehearsal room, or put yourself in a vulnerable position like that, the best thing that you can have is prep, really. Because I think that then you won't be scared, because you will have done your work, and you will have, if something happens on stage or even in a concert and something goes wrong, you know, you're not also thinking, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, or the words, or, you know, what is it about, or what's like, you know, as long as you're that sort of, going back to what you were saying, Bailey, that sort of grounds you as well.
Here we go. We're nearly 20 minutes in, and company.
Oh,
here we go. So just saying, complimenting you and your amazing company, and just saying it was amazing. Do you have any tips for someone auditioning for an MA in musical theatre in drama school?
Oh, I don't know what you'd have to do in an audition for an MA in musical theatre.
Maybe as such, maybe through acting through song, if we can go through that route. I think that.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think if you've got to prep some, it's always difficult to take a song out of context, isn't it? And perform that. I think we often, and I still do it now, and I have to really check myself, is when you learn a song, it's very, very easy just to learn the notes and learn what you think the song should sound like, or you're like, here comes the big note, here's the quiet bit, here's the intimate bit. But actually, if you just go back to the words, a great thing that I learned off somebody else, which is basically where everyone's ideas come from, off somebody else, is that you write down the lyrics, or just on a piece of paper. I often do that when I'm learning stuff anyway, just write it down, and then read the lyrics over and over again, just out loud without the music. And then suddenly you'll realize what the song is about. And then just forget all about what it sounds like for at least 2 weeks. And then slowly those two will just sort of merge together, because there's no point in singing a song really loud and really well if you've got no idea what it's about. That's what I think.
Sorry, I just saw a question. It was just saying, I'm making a video about International Barefoot Day, so if you can show your barefoot. I don't know if we'd share our feet.
That's quite random.
Perhaps not. That's slightly random, and we've got time, so we've got to make use of it. But actually, Rosalie, whilst we're just through the art of acting as such, film director John Strickland told me in a recent interview that a scene has to be like an emotional roller coaster with any given scene, no matter what change is there. So my question is to you is, what do you put in place to serve the text you were given? Like, how do you remain truthful on stage, on screen, when you are placed in a time-restricted, pressured environment?
Listen. You have to listen. I think that's the one thing that brings you back to being naturalistic, is the fact that if you're not listening, or even if you're doing a monologue, if you're just not listening to what you're speaking about, or you're not reacting, it's all about reacting to somebody else. And if you're just thinking about constantly what you're doing in the scene, I like to think of each every show I've ever done, I've thought about each scene as a different chapter. So especially in something like Company, or like Princess and things like that, I would, because had so much stage time, I'd think of like, right, okay, that chapter's gone for that character, and now they're on to the next chapter. So the character would develop over the course of the evening, because I'd think, okay, this is the scene where Bobby is. I don't know. I wouldn't even think of it I wouldn't think of it in such plain terms like that. But I would definitely feel like there'd be something else that I'd be trying to generate in that scene. So this would be generating. It's really difficult to try and put into words, because it's something I feel like I do in the moment. But honestly, listening is key. I think it's very hard to sort of play an emotion or play a roller coaster of emotions if you're not actually in the scene. I just think, yeah, you just have to. I think my best work, if I can say that, really, without being too embarrassed by saying that, is when I'm just being present and listening to somebody and reacting to them in the moment, because then it's not a force. You can't force, I think that's what acting is. That's what I think what acting is.
And reacting to the moment and thinking about what you're talking about, going through the chapters, having those moments of change, just being in the moment. Earlier last week, talking to an agent on the CCI and talking about content is king, and thinking about that and looking forward into this industry. What type of content do you think we will be seeing more of, and what do you think we should be seeing more of?
Well, I think we're having a great movement at the moment with strong female writers. I think the content there is second to none at the moment. I really do. More of that, always more of that. Diverse work, in terms of racially diverse, also diverse work in terms of the right people being hired for the right things. There's lots of people, there's lots of discussions happening, right, and rightfully so, about discrimination to do with actors with disabilities, or trans actors, actresses, deaf, blind. I feel like we need to open up the industry, be more open to that, and make it more, facilitate that more, because that we need to represent society, and in order to do that, we can't just have, just can't have the same actors doing everything all the time. It needs to open up, and I think that the content, I will be very interested to see the content that is produced after a pandemic like this. Who knows what people are writing, and I'm sure people won't want to hear. I'm sure us, as the great public who sit down and watch things and listen to things, won't want to just hear about COVID-19 the whole time. Well, we want to be challenged, we want to get away from the subject. But
escapism.
Oh no, I feel like there's going to be an explosion of there's going to be the hits that come back in order to make the industry money. There's going to be theatrical hits that just come back bang like that in order to generate people coming into the city and into London specifically. And I feel like people are going to want to have big shows where they can really escape. I don't think they're going to, I'm not sure it's a climate for Hedda Gabler and things like that. I think people are going to want to have a bit of a, okay, we're back in the theatre sort of thing. Let's have a real big night out, or a really good experience. I think the tragedies might be, who knows? How do I know? That's what I think.
Exactly. Never knowing. We're getting a bit of a traffic jam here for those that are just coming in, because the numbers are going up. If you do want to ask a question for Rosalie, we have only got about 35 minutes remaining. Let's just jump into the question, shall we? So just following up on what we were talking about earlier with acting through song. This is from Diana. It says, could you please give us some advice on how you would internalize? Well, we've done that, haven't we? We've kind of talked about that slightly. Okay, that's fine. I clicked on the wrong one. This from Lucy. I'm not wearing my glasses. This is so naughty. Anyway, how do you go from training in straight acting to being a musical theatre icon? how much time do you dedicate to vocal training and technique?
Well, that's a very nice thing to say. I don't know whether I am, but thanks. How did I go from training straight theatre? Well, it was. I think the thing is, I think you fall where you fall in this industry, and I have to say, I try my best to try and do straight theatre and musical theatre, because I never really want to choose, because I don't feel like I'm better at either one. I just think on it all as acting, and some of it's set to music. Well, I've forgotten the second part of that question.
It was, where is it? Oh God, I have to scroll up now. Here we go. It says vocal health, vocal training.
So I spent a lot of time as a kid, sort of in a choir where we had singing lessons, and when I went to drama school, there was basically we didn't have any singing technique, so I have not worked on that. I don't know whether that's the best advice, because I know lots of people have singing teachers and I don't have one, but I do take my vocal health very seriously, and I do look after my voice on a job, and even during this pandemic, I'm not I also believe that you have to live your life, so I'm not somebody who would be like, oh, I mustn't speak for 3 days because I've got to sing. I think it's a muscle. You have to exercise it, and of course you have to look after it. Like if you do a big song, you have to warm down afterwards. Patti LuPone is a great believer in warming up and warming down, and our dressing rooms were we had like an interconnecting door in the West End, and I used to say to her, what are you doing? Like after a show, she'd sing the whole show before we even did the show. And that's on a 2-show day. I'd be like, don't sing the whole show again. And she'd have it on her phone that it would play through. But she was warming herself up to do the show. And then she'd warm herself down. And then she'd warm herself up and warm herself down. And she was like, that is the key. So Patti LuPone knows much more than me. So I'm just going to do what she does.
Is that how you really found that you were able to sustain yourself during company, for example, then doing those types of things?
I had to be incredibly sensible. I mean, there was not a great deal of a nightlife happening after the job. I would basically come home, of course, because at the time my daughter wasn't even 2, so it was just like, she was so young and up and all these kind of yeah, please sleep. Don't wake me up at 5. So I had to be careful on that. I think also I hadn't quite realised it's such a big sing bobby, and it's the range of the songs is so vast, and it requires so much from you that I hadn't realised until we really got into the run. And I think that's probably about 3 months in, sort of where you are when tiredness and illness creep in and everyone gets sick and it's the winter like that. I mean, that is the time that you have to hunker down and just say, it's the job. It's all about, you've got to just look after yourself for the job. And then you can do the rest of your life later. But you have to, if you're playing that size role and singing that hard, you have to look after it like you're an athlete, really.
This is from a regular that she's very curious, asking questions. Nyara said, company was incredible. Are there any other musicals you'd like to see be in?
I don't know about gender swapping, because it just works so perfectly for that, and it's not there's a lot more cleverer people out there than me who come up with these brilliant ideas, and about gender flipping things. You see, I would never have thought of doing that with company. So I haven't spent an enormous amount of time thinking about which parts would be good now switched over. What other musicals would I like to do? I've got on my bucket list is Cabaret, and it's been there since I've been about, I don't know, 16. So I hope I can do. I'd love to play Sally Bowles at some point. I really, really would.
Whilst we're thinking about going back to you talking about being proactive, would you say that you're a creative performer that is very much rooted within the present moment, going back to the being present again, or do you look to the future, or is it like a combination of the both? What works for you?
In terms of, do I look in the future and say, where do I want to be?
Yeah, where do you want to be? What kind of jobs do you want to kind of go for as along those lines?
Of course. I mean, I think that we're always doing that, aren't we? I mean, I'm a real stickler for going, oh, I'd love to do that. Or I send an awful amount of emails to my agent saying, I'd really like to do this sort of job. And she's like, that's great, Rosie. That's great. You know, we're trying. But I'm like, what if I could just do that? I've got massive dreams of things that I want to do. But I don't covet parts. I don't say, oh, I really want to play that sort of part, or I want to play Hamlet or that, because I just don't, I feel like if I were to do that, I'd be so disappointed if it didn't happen. So I let things like that. You see, sometimes I get auditions or jobs that come through and I think I would never have a million years thought of that. So I think there's somebody doing a better job than that over there than me, in terms of coming up with projects that they might throw my way. But what am I trying to say? Yes, of course, I do the whole, I wish I could just be in a massive Netflix series. I do stuff like that. But who doesn't do that? You know, I wish I could have my own TV series on the BBC. I wish I could, you know, of course I do. But I do try, and I think it's very hard to live in the present as an actor. And that is something that I really, really, really am trying to do at the moment, is just go, right, okay, focus. Because it's always over there, isn't it? And you've always got someone over your shoulder who is doing that. And you're like, how did they get that? I want to be there. But we're all different. So, you know?
Like thinking about focus points, Barry asked a question just about technique as such. So thanks so much for having this chat. My question is, when it comes to your preparation for a role, how do you tackle it? Looking at practitioners, for you, Rosalie, what kind of, do you have any techniques put in place that you always have when approaching a character, when building a character, when going on stage?
One of my old ones that I learned at drama school is reading through the scripts and writing down everything that everybody else in the play or the musical says about you. So all the other characters will say, oh, you know, she's a something, she does this, she does that. And you think, oh, that's really good information. That's already like loads of information there about what somebody thinks of your character. Or that might be, you know, she loves, you know, she's always going out at that time of night. And the character that you're playing might never say that about themselves. So that's a really good thing that I like to do. If it's about a specific time, like when I did The Ferryman, I did a load of research about the time it was set and the troubles and things like that. What the troubles, just things like that. But obviously there's a lot of reading matter around the subject, and basically sort of steeping yourself in the project, and who the writer will give you so many clues that I think that again, going back to Marianne, I think she reads the play about 50-60 times before she even starts to direct it. So you just, every time you read it, I like to also be off book for rehearsals, because I think that's something that I've only really done since, well, for the past sort of, since I did As You Like It, really. I thought I've got to get off book for this, because I can't be in the rehearsal room learning Rosalind and trying to figure out what I'm doing as well. So I think that's been really a really helpful thing, because then you're free to listen, react way before you get on stage, and then you're coming up with ideas, and it just means you're a bit further ahead. Because if you're constantly like this at night, you're not really thinking about what you're doing on stage or the character. You're thinking about just learning the words.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Helpful.
Exactly. Picking up on Marianne Elliott, you talked about The Ferryman, Sam Mendes, Trevor Nunn, Rufus Norris, big people in the industry that you have worked with. A big thing that always comes up, hasn't been mentioned yet, is for when people do get their first big break and they're working with these big creative personalities, it's a bit daunting. So what can people put in place to just think that, okay, I can appreciate this person and what they've done in their career, but they're a person and we have a job to do?
Well, I think actually those creatives do set the tone. Actually, it's almost that you almost, I think over time those things fall away, because slowly you realize that they are people and they're just as worried about making the work good as you are, because the old saying is you're only as good as your last job. You know, they fundamentally believe that as well. But I think the list of people that you just mentioned, then they just create an atmosphere in the room where it just won't, it would be difficult to put them on a pedestal. Of course, it's at the back of your mind thinking, oh my God, you've worked with so-and-so, or you've done that show, or that show. But I think you're all working so hard on what you're making at that time, that thing sort of quickly falls away, and is not helpful really, because it just means that you'll never be able to listen to them or respond to what they're saying, because you'll just constantly be in awe of them thinking, and also they've picked you for a reason, you know, they want to work with you. And so, you know, great. That just, whatever size part you're playing in and it for them in their productions, or if you work with them, that you're there for a reason. And so that's a great thing to have in your backpack. And just when those voices get loud, you think, no, actually, they want to collaborate with me. So cool, let's do it. Let's do that.
Like reasons, projects, what motivates you about the materials that you do take on?
I don't understand the question, Bailey. What do you mean?
Like the projects that you get involved in, what's it about them that makes you tick, that makes you go, yes, sign me up?
Oh, I see. So why do I accept a specific work?
Yeah.
I think that I'm very passionate about new writing, and I seem to have always sort of head towards that, or a new take on a production, or I think a lot of my work seems to be about building things from the ground up, and I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do. I just sort of happened to stumble across it at one point when I was at the National in the studio there, and I wasn't working there. I was just got a job in been hired to do a workshop there, and I thought, oh God, I know I love creating new work. This is great. And then I think slowly I just think the industry works like that. You sort of funnel your way through there. We're all like little moles, like funneling our way through this, the undergrowth, the darkness, and we find our little paths, and we're like, oh yeah, no, I like new work. And people go, oh, I like doing big musicals, or oh, I like just doing Shakespeare. You know, I think there's a place for us all. So I feel that's sort of what floats my boat, really.
And with the acquired taste, we have a question here from it's just jam-packed, just doing an order. Leonie is saying, do you feel people want to choose between theatre, film and musicals? This is just following it up really, and has that caused any problems, and how do you deal with that?
Oh yes, Leonie, that's true. It's a real problem in the industry, actually, because there are so many of us. We do get pigeonholed, and I still really fight to get seen in the film world. You know, it's not something that's at my fingertips at all, and I wish I could do more. And I think sometimes you get a bit of a label if you're a musical theatre, or not so much straight theatre, but musicals essentially, where people say, oh, she does musicals, and that means that you're discounted from doing straight theatre or screen work, because they think you're going to be massive on the screen, or and really it's just a skill. It's just as big a skill. And I think actually, if you can do musical theatre, the likelihood of you being able to adapt yourself to do straight theatre and TV and film, the chances are pretty high, because you have to be super, super, super skilled to do a musical. So you're very aware, and you've got 100 things going on at once if you're in a musical. So I wish that prejudice didn't exist. It does exist. It still exists. And I've worked very, very, very hard, and I'm very cautious about what project I take on after a musical. So it might mean that I sit out for a few months and do other work, so I can wait for a play or wait for TV parts to start casting. Because I'm very much, I've done a lot of TV recently, but I'm really like, I really have to plug away at that world.
everyone, just very, very quickly, we're approaching the last third, 20 minutes remaining. And as everyone keeps tuning in, please, if you haven't already and you want to ask a question for Rosalie, please do subscribe and leave a comment in the box below just here. So as we're approaching like the final segment of today, Rosalie, and thank you for your time, I must say. Is there a shed of a key piece of advice or something that you always go back to help find inspiration in work, or help you just reinvigorate something and shake it up and bring new life to whatever you are perhaps doing in the industry?
I think survival just does that for you. I think it is. I think it is a survivor's industry. I think actually sometimes when you get a bit sort of tired from the rejections, or tired from the slog, because it is, and it's like that for everybody. It's not, you know, we're all in the same boat there, that we're all working towards something, and everyone gets rejected. And everyone gets hired at some point. What do I do to shake it up? I usually try and be inspired by other things, or maybe try and do something a bit more normal, like try and go off into your real life, or see your friends, or go to a class, or go to the cinema when you go to the cinema, or be inspired by going to watch other people do things. It can be a very inward-looking industry, and you can constantly be looking at yourself and scrutinizing yourself, or what have I not done, what am I not doing, or I haven't done my best, or I'm not doing that, and it's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. So it's good to just look outwards sometimes and take inspiration from, because we've got a whole village of, we've got it at our fingertips with these amazing machines now, and we can access pretty much anything that we want to. I mean, it wasn't like that when I started out, so I think we're extremely lucky, and the cinemas are opening up again. And I mean, good God, I hope the theatres do soon, because that's driving me bananas. So I'm so furious about it.
Oh my, yeah, no. Well, we that's for another conversation.
Let's not talk about that now.
We're both, pardon?
Let's not talk about that now.
Yeah, not right now. Sensitive subject. With everything expanding, everything always evolving, for you, from doing the initial audition, a read through, to then seeing the end product with your eyes on the back of the stage, or watching the TV series, film, what's your favorite part in the process, in any process?
Genuinely getting the job. That's the best day. When you get the phone call saying you got the job, you're like, oh my God! And then it's all downhill from there. No, I'm joking. That's the best bit. Oh, I love on a musical, I love a Zitz probe, where you sit down with the band and you sing through the score and you hear the orchestrations. Oh my goodness, I think I could do a Zitz probe for the rest of my life. One of my favorite things of the job is when you get into the theatre for the first time, before you start your tech rehearsal, and you know, you all come on stage in your costumes. You're like, oh my God, look at you, you're wearing that. Oh wow, that's so amazing, because you won't have seen what everyone else has been doing in their costume, you know, meetings, and the design of their characters. So it's amazing, and seeing the set and it all come together, and oh, that is a gorgeous, gorgeous moment. And then you can sit back when you're not being lit and mic'd in the tech, and watch the set and how it works. And for me, that's just, it's magic, because that's what I love about, let's go as a fly there. That's what I love about the magic of theatre. I love watching it and sitting there, and to do that in a tech, and you just think you get to work with some incredible people who design these worlds for you to inhabit. I mean, our work is to fit in with their
it's like the storyboard, isn't it? And you're just there, and you're bringing yeah it's a beautiful moment. That, I mean, obviously always getting the first performance done is ideal, and it's a lovely moment when you first share it with an audience. You hope it's a lovely moment. Let's it isn't always, but 90% of the time. thinking about magic and highlights and golden nugget moments for you, is there a particular moment that you always cherish? Are there moments that you're just like, that really has done it for me, or it's given me the stepping stone, allow me to do this?
Golden nugget moments. I mean, I've got loads really. Like in terms of being on stage at any given time, or something that's happened to me there. I mean, I think in every performance, something amazing happens. It's one of my favorite things about performing is the audience. Genuinely, I just think when we walk off and say, "Oh, we've had such a bad show," or "The audience are rubbish tonight," I think, well, were we rubbish? Maybe we weren't very good, so that's why they didn't enjoy it so much. I think getting on stage and having to really work to bring an audience along with you for a whole evening, that is one of my favorite things to do, and really feel what sort of mood they're in and think, oh, I can push this a bit further, or I could play that. You know, it's a real privilege to do that. And it's only something that I'd say I'm learning how to do, and have learned more of recently, of how to bring a collective along with you for a journey, and when you're sort of in control of the evening, I guess.
Audiences, privilege, theatrical experiences. This is from Nyara again. Thank you, Nyara. It says, what theatrical experience has impacted your life the most, either as a performer or as an audience member?
I mean, there's some theatre that I've watched that has changed me. That I think genuinely theatre can change lives and change people's perspectives and the way we think about things. I'll never forget watching People, Places and Things at the National. It's just burnt into me. I don't think I could move watching it and thinking that's not even possible, that could even happen in a theatre. That's one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen, and it opened my eyes. We were at the National at the same time. We were playing As You Like It, and I thought, right, well, I want to play Rosalind like that. And I was like, well, I can't do, as a classic example of going, I can't really do that in this, but you know, it's not kind of the same show. But I was like, wow, my head was blown off. I've forgotten the question now because I was getting carried away.
The theatrical experiences that impacted your life, either as a performer or as an audience member?
As a performer, I think I'm still on a journey. I'm still on a journey with that. I will never forget. There's a few first previews that I will never forget, such as like London Road. I did at the National, where we genuinely went out and thought, this is going to be so bad. And then the audience just couldn't believe the reaction that production got, due to the subject matter as well being what it was about the Ipswich murders of prostitutes. And we were talking about the community on London Road, how they dealt with that. So we were not expecting it to feel like that. That was one moment I will never, ever, ever, ever forget. Also, I will never forget the opening night, the first night for Company, when I thought, I genuinely don't think, I think I was so afraid that I was just calm. It was like that fear where you just go, right, I've got to get through this. And of course, Marianne builds the scaffolding and builds everything around you. So in the moments of pure fear, you've still got the structure in place, so you can hold on to that tight. But finishing being alive that night, and just I will go to the grave with me. I just thought, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, and just
such a privilege. It was such a privilege.
Yeah, and in that way, obviously, with all the work that you have done, you have immortalized yourself as such. You've very much, going back to that sense of grounding, it's always going to be there, and everyone's going to know that you're the one who did that and broke those boundaries. So in that sense, that sensation when you went into like the rehearsal room with, like, knowing that you were playing Bobby, what was going through your mind, like through your mind throughout that whole rehearsal process? Because your like whole adrenaline must have just been going the whole time.
Yes, but also I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I get to do this. This is crazy, of course, but also led by fear. and also a lot of moments going, you know, just like running out of the rehearsal room afterwards to catch a train to get back to my daughter in order to put her to bed in time. I had a real leveler, you know, or like I'd be on the phone at lunchtime going, is she okay? Has she been sick? You know, it's just, I had a big grounder outside the rehearsal room, and also your colleagues who would never, I had lots of mates in there who would never let you get too sort of hedonistic about things. But yeah, there was moments where I was like, I just can't believe this is a thing. This can't. And then, but when I think about it, I think, well, I can't open my mouth then. You know, I'm too scared. But I think mostly in that situation, I was just so excited to get going because we've been waiting to do it, you know.
Just whilst we're on scared, everyone, we have 10 minutes remaining, listeners, so please don't be afraid. Get your questions in now. We have 10 minutes remaining. And to kick us off with the listeners, Rachel has just quickly asked, how do you feel about recent live streaming plays such as Lungs from the Old Vic? Is it a possible new way of theatres to reach more people in the future? So live streams in that sense.
Sure. Well, Rachel, I think they did that brilliantly at the Old Vic. I thought they created an atmosphere where you felt very excited about watching theatre because you knew it was live. It's a bit different from NT Live, where you know when you are watching NT Live, you know it's happening live, so it's very exciting. And it's exciting to be part of an NT Live as well, because you've got cameras all in your face, and you're like, I can't believe this is being streamed in a cinema. What if I do something really horrendous and wrong and forget my lines and it's live streamed all over the world? But yeah, I think we are going to see more of that, especially if we can't get back into the theatres for a while. And I think, you know, we have amazing people running our theatres in this country, and they're all coming up with innovative ways of making this possible and bringing theatre to you and to us all. I don't see why we can't do that whilst we're in this holding pattern. I think we have to keep theatre alive in some way. We have to work to do that. I don't think we can just freeze it and then come back next summer, because A, there won't be any theatres, and also all the actors in the world will have had to have become
a different thing. Yeah.
What will we all do? Yeah. I mean, we'll have to do other jobs, and maybe we won't be able to afford to come back into the industry, you know. But I think Matthew Orchis is a great man, and he was brilliant to do that and think of doing that. He had the perfect production there. I saw it at the theatre before the pandemic hit, and when the show was running there, and I had just as much thrill watching it on the television as I did there. I mean, of course, nothing beats live theatre. Let's not forget that. But I just think we need to come up with these things. We do.
From Mika and Diana, two separate questions, but I'll just put them into one just now. Do you have any book recommendations? They're totally random. And then Mika also asked, for someone who's new to theatre, what plays, old or new, would you recommend for people to watch / read?
Oh my goodness, they're two enormous questions. To read, you see, the thing is, I'm a really slow reader. So at the moment, I'll let you into a little thing. I'm training to be a yoga teacher at the moment. So because I was fascinated with yoga, obviously I brought it up quite a lot. So I am at the moment can only think of the yoga books that I'm reading. That's of absolutely no help to you. In terms of plays to read, it just depends what you're interested in. I mean, there's just, you can go to Simon Stevens. There's, I couldn't even think of. It's so stressful. I think much as you might turn on a TV series or a film and there's a subject matter, you know, like horror or thriller or romance or comedy, there's basically a writer for every genre, every emotion. And lots of these writers do all of those things. I think you've got a broad spectrum out there. I'd say there's a lot of amazing female writers. You could go and read a lot of work by them. And then come back to the men.
Exactly. Well, from Leonie, back again, she just really said, you talked earlier about putting things on with your friends. Any recommendations of where to do that, perhaps? And thank you so much for this. It's been great.
Oh, you're so welcome. I mean, in your living room. I mean, not necessarily putting, you know, you could, I mean, just like getting together and creating some music. I walked down the street the other day near here, and there was some musicians had their window open. There was a cellist and a violinist and a pianist, and they were just playing together in a front room. And it was like there was a crowd of us just listening to it outside this window because we're all starved of live music, and it was absolutely beautiful. I've done that loads. I've had loads of friends organise play readings on Zoom. You could organise that on a Zoom thing, or in a socially distanced way in a park. When you can hire little rooms in pubs, you can go upstairs. A mate of mine, we used to meet every week and do a play reading upstairs at a pub. You know, the world is your oyster. You can. It's only as inventive as you make it. I think those things.
And as we approach, because we've got 5 minutes remaining, for you looking at yoga, it looks like we've got some big fans of yoga on here as well. With performance, with the power of breath, are you someone who uses the physical to tap into the emotional, or do you just let the emotional let everything else react?
Yeah, I think you just have to be open to it. I think it will. When I did Light Princess, I used to feel like it was just I didn't have it. Well, I think you have to get out of the way of the work. That's what I think, because I think if you try and put too much on top of it, it just doesn't come out of you. You have to just let it come out of you. I think. I know that's a bit of a funny thing to say, but you know, oftentimes you see people sort of grappling with a character or trying to put a physicality on it and all these kind of things. And there's a place for that, of course there is. And I've done a lot of work like that myself. But also I think there's a world where I just felt like when I did Tori Amos's work, it was just none of my business. I had to get way out of the way of her writing and just let it happen, because it was her that was speaking. I was just producing Tori through me. You know, it wasn't my business to put Rosalie on top of it.
Exactly. And just very, very quickly from Hannah. Hannah's going into her first year of drama school, actor musical theatre. What advice would you give to yourself when starting out in that sense? Just revisiting, I guess, summarising everything, I presume, of everything that we've been talking about.
Oh, I just think starting your training is such an exciting time. You're at the very, very beginning of your adventure, and there's going to be so many exciting and wonderful and new and scary and brilliant things that come your way. So I think just being open to them and being interested, and not creating an environment for yourself where you say that you can't do something by sort of by being afraid of it. I remember being so daunted by everything I was being asked to do as an actor musician. You know, you have to play instruments, do the character. When I was at drama school at Rose Bruford, I had to write the music, orchestrate the music, teach the actors the music, and I was thinking, I can't do this as well as doing the acting course and the social life, you know, so something had to give. I think just really enjoy it because it's such a brilliant time, and you're learning so much. You just rinse it for everything it's worth.
Oh, Rosalie, thank you so much for coming to visit us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everyone's just drinking just on here at the moment. Please do look after yourself. Enjoy the weather. We'll catch you very, very shortly. Look after yourself. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye. That was Rosalie Craig, everyone. Absolutely sensational. Righty, everyone. Have a nice little break. There we go. It's all kicking off now. Rosalie, who's backstage, thanks so much. Thank you. Been wonderful Q&A. Everyone, please stay tuned, because up next, if you want to have a bit of a dance, a bit of a nice time, fun, at 4:45, Carrie Willis is back for a sensational contemporary dance class. Hope to see you there.